on to our next topic. After I have visualized the stakeholder communication that may be possible in my project, the next step would be to collect what is their communication requirement. I have made some pointers which may help in doing so. There's a pointer for our objective for this session is complete, which is identification of stakeholder. Now it is done. This is the next step, some pointers for improving project communication. So once these stakeholders that are identified, you may want to classify them with respect to their interest and authority. And based on that, you may plan communication. We have seen the visually, we visualize the interaction between them. Now let's take a look at this matrix here. Look at this, please. I may have a senior executive, one particular group or one person who may be having low interest on my project and also maybe low authority. So somebody who falls between low interest and low authority, it gives me an indicator that perhaps I don't have to spend too much of time in communicating to this person or group, which means it talks about minimal effort. Whereas if I have for my project called mobile app, somebody who's got high interest but low authority, which is a service technician himself perhaps, or service group who have high interest but low authority, they don't have a say on perhaps the budget or perhaps the total functionality. So you have to keep them informed. Then you may also have some players basically who would be having high interest and high authority, sponsor in this case who's got high interest because he's funded for this and there is a impact, business impact that he may expect out of this project. And he also has a high authority obviously because he's sponsored. Similarly, you may have senior executives who have high authority and high interest. So keep in mind, they are the key stakeholders and you have to communicate with them on a regular basis. So notice this matrix. A stakeholder who's got low interest and low authority, minimal effort. A stakeholder who's got high interest and low authority, keep them informed. And a stakeholder who's got low interest and high authority, make sure you satisfy their requirement as far as communication is concerned. And a stakeholder with high interest, high authority, they are the key stakeholder, ensure you don't miss them at all. Because if you don't satisfy them with respect to communication, you may be in trouble. Once you have classified, prepare a communication plan. In order to do that, you need to sit with them and say, hey, what would you like to have? What kind of reports would you like to have? Do you like to have any report in the first place? Or would you like to have emails? Or maybe a phone call will do? Or just an SMS will do? So find out what is their communication requirement. Status report may not be the only thing which people may be interested. If given a choice to me, if somebody asks, hey, would you like to be a part of my project communication, I would say, hey, I'm not a part. So please don't send me, just send me monthly report. That's good enough. So sit with the stakeholder that you have identified using onion diagram, collect their communication requirement, and just communicate only those. That will be mentioned in a developed stakeholder communication plan. The entire project revolves around the stakeholders. As I said, they can make or break the project. So it is important for you to begin with the right step, the first step. And the first step is identify them properly, identify all of them. Once you've identified, classify them and find out their communication requirement and the project expectation. All right. That was about some pointers on project communication. The next slide is coming up, which talks about how do I engage stakeholder. There's always a confusion in, yes, I have identified the stakeholder, and what do we do with that? Here is a trick that I'm sharing with you, which is a very good pointer which helps. I have been using this in my project and I've got a lot of support. And the trick is, treat all the stakeholders as they are part of your project team. What it means is the moment you start thinking of a legal department, accounts department, HR department as your project team, all of a sudden you'll see ways to communicate with them. You'll see ways to convince them. You'll see ways to negotiate with them. Why? Because Your thought process has changed. Now you're thinking of them as a project team, which means you can assign work to them. I'm sure there are a lot of people who understand the importance of boss, but very often we miss considering boss as an important. We identify them as a stakeholder, but then we isolate them for whatever reasons. I say boss is an asset. Why? Because he could win some battle or he could win a war for you. And they are the people who are positively impacted by your project, which means the smiley, the yellow smiley are the bosses also. So why keep them in isolation? Let's say you're having tough time convincing the customer or customer representative. So go and talk to your boss. Hey boss, I need your help. I am unable to negotiate with this person in the customer side. The boss, I'm sure, would find a way out and say, oh, no, don't worry, I'll take care of it. How are you able to do that? Is because you're treating your boss as your project team. And the moment you start thinking your boss or your customer also as a project team, you will find a way to manage them, which means engage them by assigning work. Request them for, let's say, approvals. You can go and talk to your customer who's for you, say that, hey, your support team is not responding to my questions. It is delaying my project. I'm sure they would say, don't worry, let me look into that. That is why a trick here is treat them as a part of your team and you'll see the difference. All right, that was the pointer. That comes to session end, and I have some FAQs planned for you. A lot of time people don't ask questions, so I have framed 3 questions from my side, which may be very common questions. So here it comes. The first question that may come to you is, how do we do stakeholder identification in the real world project? The onion diagram you may have understood, but you may have a doubt saying that, hey, nice, I have understood, tell me the next step. How do I go about it? Very simple. You see the image out there. It is, I am doing it along with the team, doing the onion diagram, the rings that you can see there, and we are using Post-its. So please go ahead, use a chart paper or a plain board as I have been using there. Use Post-its and marker pen and write on the Post-it each of the stakeholder and place it in the appropriate onion ring. The 3 rings, which is the system layer, the containing system, which is the organization, and finally the wider environment. Do it with the team if possible, because you may miss few stakeholders. You don't want to have them missed. I have done many iterations, so expect few iterations. It may not be a one-time affair. A good thing would be to take pictures from your camera, because Post-its fall sometimes. I normally take a picture, so next day when I come back, so that I put the Post-it backs into their position. Once this is done, multiple iteration is done, you may convert this into final list of stakeholder using an onion diagram in Microsoft Visio or any other simple tool of your convenience. There is absolutely no mandate that you have to use a software to do this. I normally avoid using software. So what you see out there is a manual system, and I take pictures and finally make an Excel sheet out of it. This is one question that may run into your mind. Another question that may run is, how much time does it take for me to identify stakeholder? Many of the project processes people fail to apply, also fearing that, oh shit, it may take a long time. I don't have that much time. That is fair. So the answer is, it depends on the complexity of the project. There are no thumb rules. How much of time you need to spend on identifying stakeholders? Sorry, there are no thumb rules. For some project, this process may take about 30 minutes to a day. Most of my project, I have spent about anything between 1 hour to a day. And yes, there have been times when I have spent about a week also. So some projects, such as an infrastructure project, such as a metro, may take more than a week or month to identify stakeholders itself. So if the question is out of fear in terms of how much time do I have so much of time to do that, the only way you can overcome this is by doing it yourself. Any philosophy, any tool, any methodology, good or bad, you can say only after you have applied it. So my request is, go back. Trust me, it helps. I use it for many consulting assignments. This is a regular, our way of life. And please try it yourself and see what I am saying makes sense or not. Another question that is frequently asked is, hey, you say that you've identified the requirement, excellent. Identified the stakeholder, excellent. And if I start asking all the stakeholder, what is your requirement, what is your requirement, what is your requirement, will that not increase the risk of increasing the scope? Well, that's a very good question. And it runs in many people. I have seen my customers doing that mistake of not asking the customer what they want because they're afraid. This is a fixed price contract. If I ask them what you want, they may ask me to give them a moon or a Jupiter or a Pluto, which may be out of my scope. Now, fearing that, my customers don't even ask them. Now, that is a problem. So remember, avoiding this situation may not necessarily solve a problem, because if the stakeholder requirements are not captured, then they are basically mental pictures in the mind. You avoid capturing them. Finally, you don't deliver. Remember, someday, late stage in the project, they will show up and say, hey, I want this to happen. And that at that time may cost you really very, very expensive. And sometimes it may also lead to customer dissatisfaction. Also, I tell this to my customer, go and ask your customer, what's your requirement? If they say, I want a moon or a Jupiter, this is your opportunity to set the expectation right in the beginning itself. Please tell them, sorry, with the money that you're paying, you'll not get moon, you'll not get Jupiter. Or look at this as an opportunity. Tell the customer, excellent, we will give you that, but we will charge you extra for that. I think that's a great opportunity. Why fear of getting the scope up? All right, that begins to the end of this session. That is all I had planned for you today. The email IDs are there. You can contact me, raghu@skillglobal.com. And any questions, do not hesitate to ask me.
Thanks for the insightful presentation, Raghu. Let's quickly take up the questions now. And I request you to please read out the questions and their answers so that all our users may listen to the insights. And due to time constraint, I request you to take a couple of them. And as we have already surpassed the time, we would be closing the session soon.
All right.
If you can see the questions in the doc.
Yes, the first question. Yes, I am seeing that. One of the questions which is asked by Umashankar Natarajan, what are the methods to identify stakeholder other than onion diagram?